Welcome to the Unscripted podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Conrad, and this show is where we hear the real stories from real people changing the world. From everyday people to the top celebrities, all the conversations are real, raw, and always unscripted. Thank you for joining me today. Now let's get to today's guest. All right, everybody, welcome to the still unnamed, unsponsored studios here in Columbus, Ohio for Unscripted and the podcast. I'm going to stumble over my words because this is a moment for me, and anybody that knows me knows that I sort of like a team from North Carolina and have for several years, since my senior year in high school. And Coach and I were just joking around a little bit, but my fandom started late 80s. Unfortunately, right after he stopped playing. But let me introduce you. And as you know, I'm not scripted, but let me go ahead and read just a small introduction here to my guest, and then I will let him really talk about himself. Joining me today is Matt Doherty. Played and coached at basketball at University of North Carolina. He started on the 1982 national championship team with NBA greats, a guy you may have heard of named Michael Jordan. Not sure. He's okay. He's okay. And James Worthy, also, pretty good. Okay. The program was led by legendary coach and someone I have the ultimate respect for, and that is Dean Smith. Coach went on to coach basketball at Notre Dame before taking over at the University of North Carolina program. There you go. He led the Tar Heels and to the 2001 regular season ACC championship while being named AP National Coach of the Year. In 2005, his players won a national championship. I'm going to put that, and we may come up with that later, but let's just leave it at that. Yeah. In 2005, his players won a national championship, and Matt is now a consultant while broadcasting games for the ACC network. Since his time at UNC, Coach Doherty has worked as the head coach at FAU, SMU. In addition to working at ESPN, the Indiana Pacers, and the Atlantic 10 Conference, he is married to his wife, Kelly, and has two children, Tucker, and is it Haiti? Hattie. Thank you. Hattie, I want to make sure I get it right. And they reside in Mooresville, North Carolina. Would you all welcome and help me welcome, and I don't know if you're driving in your car, but if you're listening to this, help me welcome my guest, Coach Matt Doherty. What an absolute honor. Thank you for being on Unscripted, Coach.
Oh, man, my pleasure, Aaron. No, thank you very much. The thing that I usually joke about is as you were reading my bio, if people are truly paying attention, they're wondering, okay, the head coach at North Carolina, National Coach of the Year in 2001, and then 2005, North Carolina won a championship with his players. And then all of a sudden you go on to coaching at FAU, SMU. It sounds like I couldn't keep a job after that, which is somewhat accurate. But I think that the whole reason we're here together today, Aaron, is that to talk about that gap, that 2-year gap post 2003, because I was the head coach at North Carolina and National Coach of the Year. 2001, we were ranked number 1 in the country, number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. The next year, we're 8-20, worst record in Carolina history. I knew we weren't going to be great, and then I knew the next year was going to be rebuilding, and then I was asked to resign. And you could point my fingers at a lot of places, but Roy Williams, the head coach at North Carolina, who I worked for 7 years at Kansas, would say, if you're pointing a finger at someone else, there are 3 pointing at you. Right. So to me, no matter who's to blame, at the end of the day, I was to blame because the head coach, right? Well, you're in charge of one. I tell kids all the time, you make decisions and you have to deal with the consequences. Yep. I made a decision to leave Notre Dame to become the head coach at North Carolina, and things didn't work out as planned. So I have to deal with the consequences. And as any coach or player, after a loss, what do? You watch the film and you try to get better.
Right.
So I watched basically a 3-year film of my coaching experience and try to get better. I went on a leadership journey that took me to an executive coach, Carol Weber, at Darden at UVA. I took classes with her and her husband. I worked with Fran Johnston, who's an executive coach at Penn. She taught a class there. I learned about emotional intelligence. I worked with Mike Useem there. I worked with Jerry Bell in Chapel Hill, did a 360-degree survey. So I really went on this journey that the book is titled Rebound, and basically it's rebounding from setbacks, and then pain to passion. And my pain was losing my job, Aaron. But through that, leadership became my passion, because the more I studied it, the more I was excited to learn. Mm-hmm. And what really hit me was in athletics, in business, leadership is not really formally taught.
Nope.
There are exceptions.
Right.
Jack Welch did a good job at GE. Yep. He had his own little university there. But for the most part, it's not taught in college athletics.
Right.
And in business, it may be taught by, okay, we're going to bring in a speaker in. We're going to have a seminar for 2 days. Check the box. Right. Boom. You are now a leader. Leadership is a practice.
Yep.
I feel like I'm quoting Allen Iverson.
That's right.
You've got to practice. And I have what I have on my wall, I'll show you here, is my banner, the Doherty coaching practice. And it's DCP and learn and grow.
Yep.
Because you have to practice these things. You can't, it's like golf. You know, if you just go out and play golf and say, okay, I'm going to go out once a year and expect to shoot in the 70s, that's not happening.
Right.
You need to practice. And so leadership is a skill. Now, the good thing about that is you can improve skills, right?
Right. Right.
So it's my job as a leadership coach, executive coach. I have a Vistage practice, Vistage leadership. It's the executive leadership, the oldest and largest executive coaching organization in the world. We practice.
Yeah.
You know, I want to run people through simulations like I run my teams through simulations in practice, to be prepared for these stressful moments, because those are the moments that'll make or break you.
Right. Right. I agree with you 100%. Where I work and spend my days working, we have a saying that, you know, corporate teams are the only teams that don't practice.
Right.
But every day's game day. And,
right.
and you're absolutely right, Coach. Corporate teams need time. They need time to tonight, Carolina is going to play Syracuse. They're going to face a zone.
Right.
It's different, right? Corporate America has faced something they've never seen before this year in a pandemic.
Right.
And many weren't prepared because they don't practice. Now, you can't practice for a pandemic. I get that.
Right.
But you understand my point. I think every day we are faced with challenges in leadership that we weren't prepared for because we don't practice.
Yeah. To
your point, you know, teams practice for a variety of things. Ohio State last night practiced for something. Alabama practiced for Ohio State. You know, and we can say who got the better of that. But at the end of the day, they schemed, they practiced, they prepared. And corporate America does not do that. We just go to work every day. We show up, we do our thing, we go home. And I absolutely agree with you. That is a fantastic place for you to, I think, it sounds like you've really found your niche, and you're helping other companies.
Well, that's my goal. It's been tough, Aaron, for 17 years. I felt like I was falling off the Empire State Building when I left Chapel Hill, and you know, who was there to catch me? Because the Carolina family was my safety net.
Yeah.
And now I'm getting, you know, somewhat, I felt kicked out of the family, or, you know, booted to the side. And I was free falling, not only from my safety net, but also from a career.
Yeah.
And so I coached again. I really wanted to coach again. I thought about not coaching and just doing some TV and business. But I wanted to put these skills to work to the test.
Yeah.
And so I took a job at FAU, and it was a low-level job, but a real fulfilling job. And then I went to SMU, was there for 6 years, was never able to really turn the corner, and got let go. So now you're like, okay, what do I do at 50? Do I just hang on? And I didn't want to just hang on. So I went to the NBA, worked for the Pacers, and then got into college athletics again in an administrative role with the Atlantic 10. But I wanted to control my destiny, and I wanted to coach in some way, shape, or form. And the executive coaching is fulfilling work, because as Coach Smith had on me, and hopefully I had on some of my players, I want to have on some businesses and businessmen, because at the end of the day, John Maxwell would say, and I went through his program, your company, your organization will only go as far as the level of the leadership.
100%.
I was on a podcast last week with Roman Harper, who played at Alabama. For Don Shula was recruited, not Don Shula, Dave Shula was recruited by Mike Price, and he never got to play for Saban. And I said to Roman had a heck of a career, went to 2 Super Bowls, won one, all pro safety, played for New Orleans, played for the Panthers. And I said, okay, what's the difference between Alabama now and Alabama before?
Right.
So same resources, same campus, same fan base, same boosters.
Yep.
It's a guy wearing headsets.
Right.
Different guy.
Right.
Different leader. And he took them to, unprecedented heights in modern day football.
Right.
That one person.
Yeah. I would agree. But it's interesting, Coach, because, so we have an underwritten rule on Unscripted. And if I ever ask you a question and you can't or aren't comfortable or don't want to answer it, you just say pass. And it's fine. My audience understands. I understand. We're good. We'll move on. I'm going to tread very lightly because I live in Buckeye territory right now.
Yeah.
And I will say that I've had conversations with players that saw 2 head coaches that have won a championship at Ohio State within the last 20 years. I don't know my Buckeye history as well as I know my Carolina history, but let's just say 2 coaches. One was kind of pushed out, and we could have a whole podcast on why. And whether or not I agree with it. And I don't, but that's fine. And then another one that came in, very high name, very whatever. 2 completely different cultures. To your point, 2 completely different cultures. One that is, I just have the ultimate respect for. The other one I don't know a lot about. But 2 completely different cultures, and a player that bridged Coach A and Coach B, and can tell you they were 2 completely different cultures, and yet they had the same result. To your point, same facilities, same buildings, same uniforms, same. However, the guy with the headset on led completely differently, and we can argue which one was better or worse, but they both got the same thing, and that's a banner hanging up in their facility. Now, and I think I'm tracking with you in that, I think there's different ways to achieve our goals, but it depends on your bent. It depends on your team. And in sports, it's a little different because you have this fan base. I think in business, we don't have necessarily a fan base. We have a customer base. It's a little different. Would you agree, or what would you think on that?
Well, you're touching a lot of great topics and talking about a lot of great things.
Yeah.
I think a couple things. One, you can win. But is it built for the long term?
Right.
And you can win, but is there collateral damage?
Right.
What are you sacrificing to get there? Are you sacrificing ethics? Are you sacrificing morals? Or are you trying to, do things the right way? And there'll always be things that happen, especially when you have 85 football players and, on a college
media.
but
Right.
do you, yeah, you can hang banners, but are you going to hang another one? Are you going to hang another one? Are you going to hang another one and try to keep your players, your program out of the media for anything negative?
Right.
That's key. It's not just the winning. It's not just the end result. There's got to be more to it. And then I think the difference between sports and business is, yeah, you have a fan base on a public company. You have
Right.
a board,
Right.
Non-public, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's not in the news every day. You can probably take a little bit of a day off in the business world and people might not notice. But on the basketball court, on the football field, you cannot,
Nope.
even in practice, because all practices are filmed now. And the position coach, the head coach is going to watch that film and see you dog a sprint, see you run a sloppy route, and you're going to get called out for it. Where if you don't make, you're a salesman and you only make 25 calls a day and not 30, or if you leave a little early for lunch, that's not going to be on film, especially now when people are working remotely.
Mm-hmm.
That's really where the discipline needs to kick in.
For sure. Yeah, it's the difference between touching the end line with my foot or touching it with my hand and coming up short, right?
I talk about that, Aaron, and that might be a title of my next book, Touch the Line.
Yep.
Got to touch the line, man.
Yeah.
You got to touch the line. Like, that's why I love when I hear Kobe Bryant talk and Michael Jordan. They're kind of the same ilk. Mm-hmm. They touch the line when they run sprints.
Yep.
It drives me crazy when I go to a practice and I see a guy running sprints and he stops this short of the line, and the coach allows him to.
Right.
Like, whoa. Like, so what's acceptable?
Right. Because if I accept that, then I'm going to accept something else. And if I don't hold that player accountable for the fact that he didn't touch the line, or that employee accountable for the fact that they didn't hit or didn't do or didn't whatever it might be that their role is, then everyone else around them sees that, and now nobody's touching the line. I love it. That's really good stuff. And I want to get to your book. I do want to point out that in your bio, that is your bio that I actually reread, but the 2005 commentary was my own.
Okay.
Asterisk, just in case anybody listens to this, I don't want them to think that you had it in your bio. I put that in your bio because that's always been my belief. Now, I do believe that we are very beholden to, I didn't get to play for. Apparently they don't want intramural championships at Carolina. I don't know why, but, or guys with a 13 on their ACT, but, I believe and love Carolina so deeply. And, my belief has always been, when it comes to you and any history, that, two things. One, 2005 were your players. You recruited those players, you groomed those players. They were your players. They went out and executed, but at the end of the day, they were your players. That's, again, this is my own commentary, anybody listening. The second thing is, my belief is, and we can argue and Bill Guthridge obviously took over for Coach Dean in a very quick transition, but you never want to be, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. You'd never want to be the guy that replaces the guy. You want to be the guy that replaced the guy that replaced the guy, because the guy that replaced the guy has in a case like a Dean Smith, wow. I mean, how do you replace Coach Dean Smith, a legend, right? And so I believe, this is again my own commentary, I believe you were in a very tough position. Coach Guthridge is beloved. He was the next seat over. He took over. He did a wonderful job. But at the end of the day, I believe you're the guy that replaced the guy, and that's very tough
probably was because really, almost Bill Guthridge and Dean Smith were one and the same. They were attached at the hip for 30 years. Incredible. They could finish each other's sentences, and they were hand to glove. So, but I couldn't turn it down.
Sure.
I mean, I would have, hindsight 2020, I could have stayed at Notre Dame and maybe still be coaching there, as my Bray is. But I probably still wonder, Why did I turn that down?
Right.
I didn't want to be afraid of it. And I, I didn't want to look back. And now I look back saying, well, maybe I should have stayed at Notre Dame. But that's where your faith, it's a test of your faith. And I have to lean on the higher power, which for me is God. And it's not easy. Like there's a lot, I talk a lot in my book. Again, the book is entitled Rebound from Pain to Passion. You can get it on Amazon.
Awesome.
Pre-order it right now or buy the ebook version. And I will do an audio version. But it is a very, it's very challenging. It's just a challenging thing to take over. The triggers that you experience, like tonight, Carolina, you mentioned playing Syracuse.
Right.
I'll watch the game.
Sure.
But I'll be thinking, like I'll see Sean May on the bench and I recruited Sean, and I'll see, something else will trigger me. And I'll think, boy, I wish I was still coaching there. There's a lot of triggers. And in my book, I put in a segment, I think I'm trying to do a better job of reading the Bible. And, Jesus taught in parables, stories through stories. And I think that creates stickiness. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote about the bridge over the Bitter River, and that it's a hefty toll and there's no guardrails. No. And it's easy to drive off into the river. And like I'm talking about, there's triggers that I'm trying to drive over this bridge, right, over this bitter river. And as I'm driving, and I recall, like, let's say a coach gets fired and he's getting paid $15 million not to coach.
Right.
Like, I didn't get that.
Right.
I might drive off into the river.
Right.
Or, someone makes a comment that, Matt Doherty has the worst record in Carolina history. I could drive off into the river. So you really have to lean on that higher power. And again, for me, it's God. And like when you hear that, you say, well, they don't really know. They don't know. They're fans, and that's okay. I mean, fans pay the bills. Sure. And so you got to take the high road. Kevin White, the AD at Duke, was my AD when I left Notre Dame. And as soon as I got forced to resign at North Carolina, he called me. Here's a guy I left. Yeah. For North Carolina. He calls me. He says, take the high road. There's less traffic up there. Yep. And I've tried to do that ever since. And this book, Rebound from Pain to Passion, is a high road version. I do share my struggles, but I'm not going out there and saying, hey, I got screwed and this person and that person. Right. No. I want to take full accountability and show people, kind of help people, alert people to where the possible landmines are so they don't step on them like I did. Right. I can't wait to read the book. I really can't. And I want to make sure we do cover, you've mentioned it a few times. I will have it in this blog post. I will have a link so you can go out and pre-order. I can't wait to get my hands on it personally. It's such an honor to have a preview literally with the guy that wrote the book. This is honestly such a tremendous honor for me. You can ask my family. My daughters are like, Dad, come on. And I'm like, no, seriously, you don't understand. Okay. So I'm tremendously honored. The other thing, a couple of things I thought of as you were talking. One, I don't know all Tar Heel fans, but I do know that and I think you find this even in business, because now we live in a world of Google reviews and Twitter, and I can fire off a tweet behind a keyboard or a review behind a keyboard with a fake name and trash a business. And that, again, I'm an empath. So when I see someone review any company I might work for, or anything that I'm attached to, it bothers me. I feel it. And I've had to learn to separate that myself. But what I will say is the minority is always louder. Yeah. There's a majority of people that loved you as a player,
love you as a coach, love you as a part of the Carolina family, and I believe you are always a member of the Carolina family. I can't speak for all those people, but I guarantee there's a vast majority, when the minority are the ones that are going to fire off a tweet, right?
Yes, exactly. And listen, most Tar Heel fans have been great to me.
Absolutely. Right.
It's sometimes the non-Tar Heel fan that might take a shot, about, hey, you have the worst record in Carolina history. And, you have to put everything in perspective.
Right.
And you have to, Jesus was on the cross and he's praying to God saying, Father, forgive them for they don't know what they're doing.
Right. Right.
So I'm saying, okay,
I can handle fan base.
He's getting hung to a cross, nailed to a cross, and he's trying to forgive those people.
Right.
I can forgive somebody who makes a stupid comment on Twitter about me.
Right? Who has a name that's not even like it's some burner account, right? And so let me ask you that, Coach. I imagine you've mentioned faith now. Where does grace come in? Because I imagine you've had to extend a ton of grace. You talked about bitterness, but I think along with bitterness comes grace, because we don't get over bitterness until we extend grace, and grace is hard. Where are you on grace? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Grace and forgiveness kind of are neck and neck in my book. And I talk, I think I have a chapter or at least a segment on forgiveness. Because ultimately, that's what it got to that point where I could forgive the people that I think may have slighted me, may have wronged me. But Aaron, more importantly, I had to forgive myself.
Right.
Because I think that sometimes we're so hard on ourselves, and we expect ourselves to be perfect, and you can easily beat yourself up over, why did I do that?
Right.
Why did I make that decision? Why did I handle that situation a certain way? Why didn't I seek more advice? And so, I had to forgive, and I had to forgive myself. And I think once I got to that point, it was, 600 of the 800 pounds came off my shoulders. There's still a couple 100 pounds up there,
sure.
but it definitely was, and grace, you talk about it, like grace is so important because you'd only use grace when you lose.
Right.
But there needs to be grace when you win. And I talk about that in the book too.
Can't wait.
Like Coach K, my second year when we didn't have a good team, he Duke was playing Carolina in the Smith Center. And I could tell with about 10 minutes to go, we're down 20, 25 points. And he starts holding the ball. And I said to my staff, I said, he's holding the ball.
Yeah.
And after the game, I went up to him. I said, Coach, thank you for holding the ball. I mean, they could have beat us by 40.
Oh, and I got you. Okay.
Yeah. No. I mean, he's holding the ball, so he's not running up the score.
Oh, see, I thought it was, okay. Yeah, I got you. Yep.
So, he could have embarrassed me.
That's great. Yeah.
And his response was, I've been there. How about that?
Right.
Yeah. So here's a man who, his first 3 years, he almost got run out of town.
Yep.
At Duke.
Yep.
And he lost a famous ACC championship tournament game, I think 100-66 to Virginia. And so he knows, doesn't feel real good.
Right.
And that grace that he showed me in victory was impressive.
To the most bitter of rivals, right? I mean, if there's anybody that you could drive in the ground and pound and walk out of there, with your fan base happy, Coach K could have done that. I thought you were going a different direction. I thought he was holding it so you guys couldn't score, and I thought almost running out the clock. No, that is class. And I'm not a huge K fan, obviously, for reasons understood. But that is class. That is class.
I think the key is to be respectful.
Sure, respectful.
There's you don't have to be a fan, but I think there's a respect, and
sure
that permeates through Duke basketball to me, I mean, Jay Billis is on the front cover. He wrote an endorsement
Yes.
for me. Kevin White, the AD at Duke, he wrote an endorsement for me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm close to Tommy Amaker. Mike Bray's been good to me. To Mike Jaminski. And so, you know, at the end of the day, you know, the competition, you hate each other on the court, but a lot of guys chose Duke over Carolina and Carolina over Duke.
Right. Same guys.
Grant Hill, Ferry, Danny Ferry, Matt Doherty, you know, you can go down the line. There are a lot of guys recruited by both schools.
Yep. And I think it still extends to this day, you know, even Zion, Brandon Ingram, you could go down the list, all the guys that were on both lists and, you know, chose one over the other. And I think they're, you know, they all play together in the same circuits now. It's all different, but I do respect that from Coach K. That's a fantastic, you know, image of Grace from him. And it's so I was interested in your thoughts on Grace because that I can't imagine, like, I mean, I didn't ever coach at North Carolina, surprisingly. I don't know why, but I coached sixth grade basketball. But you know, you get that tweet or you get that guy that fires off something, and you want to fire back, and nobody ever wins a Twitter war. And this, you know, you were coaching at an age when Twitter didn't exist, and you know, you get letters, I'm sure, or bulletin boards or whatever the forum was. You know, again, it's just some guy in his basement that just has some axe to grind that fires it off. But I, as an empath, I would want to fire back. I would want to respond because I want to protect my university, my team, my whatever it is. So I give you a ton of credit for the fact that over the years, it sounds like you've just been able to really hold that at bay, and that's not easy. And I imagine you cover.
Well, listen, I've made, you know, Aaron, you're saying nice things, but a lot of times that's what got me in trouble. And you're, you know, Urban Meyer coached at Ohio State. He worked with a guy named Tim Kite, who's in
100%.
Who
Columbus. Yep.
Yeah, in Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
And I follow Tim on Twitter.
Yep.
And I learn a lot from him and listen to his podcast. And he talks about a formula called E plus R equals O.
100%. Yep.
Where E is the event,
mm-hmm.
R is your reaction, and O is the outcome. And the better your reaction to event means that leads to a better outcome.
Yep.
So as you just touched on, someone says something to you in person or on Twitter, and if you immediately react in a negative way, it's going to lead to a negative outcome.
Right.
So you've got to slow down. I think that's something that I've had to learn to do is slow down, tap the brakes, digest it, think of a reaction that'll be a professional reaction. Like even on Twitter, people will say things and you know, I want to respond to everyone and try to disarm them.
Yeah.
Because to me, my core values are 4 things: respect, trust, commitment, and positivity, RTCP. And so I want to do it in a respectful manner, and I want to do it in a positive manner.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, you can disarm somebody. And especially before the election, you know, with all that was going on. And if you throw something out there and people start crushing you, I try to say, hey, you know, I respect your opinion. Why do you feel that way? Or I even followed those people and say, DM me, let's talk about it.
Yep.
Because I think for our world to be a better place, the two sides need to come together and work as one. And the only way to do that is through respectful communication.
Yep. One of my favorite quotes is actually from a song in the 80s, and it says, we all talk a different language talking in defense. And
we talk a different language when we talk in defense?
Yes. Yeah.
Like
Mike and the Mechanics. We all talk a different language talking in defense. And it's a song called The Living Years, has really nothing to do with what we're talking about. But that lyric always really, really resonated with me because I believe that's where we're at. we're all talking in defense. We're not listening to one another. We're not hearing each other. I can listen to a song, but do I hear the song? Do I listen to do I actually hear the lyric? And I think, there's a difference between driving along, listen to a song, or do you actually hear that song? Do I listen to my friends, or do I actually hear them? Do I hear their pain? Do I hear their frustration? Do I hear their, need, whatever it might be? Do I do that? And there's a huge difference. And I think when we're talking in defense, none of us hear each other. And it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's Duke and Carolina, or, politics, you name it, religion. There's a million things right now that are going on in our country that none of us are listening to each other. We're talking in defense. So thank you, Mike and the Mechanics, for that lyric.
Yeah, love it.
Now, I will say somebody doesn't want to at you on Twitter about J.R. Reed, apparently, because
I love JR.
I love JR.
I just, when you say, it'll be the greatest honor to have you on my podcast.
Yes.
And you copy me on that. And I'm like, whoa, dude.
That wasn't well thought out on my part.
It's like taking a girl to the prom and say, well, I really wish I could have taken you to the prom, and say it in front of that girl. That's not cool, man. Come on, AA Ron.
Well, and I don't know if anyone listening saw the exchange. The backstory is I grew up I started watching Carolina basketball with Dean Smith on the sideline and a guy named J.R. Reed as a freshman. I would go out in my driveway. I would try his moves by myself. I started playing basketball as a senior. I was horrible. I got cut from the team. I was a very late bloomer, and J.R. Reed.
Here's the deal. If you would have started watching Carolina earlier and fallen in love with my game,
there it is.
You might have made the varsity.
I might have been in North Carolina. I might have been on.
Hey, let's not get crazy. Let's not get crazy, Aaron. Whoa, slow down, bro.
Okay. Well, I like to dream. But no, I agree. I wish I would have started earlier, all kidding aside, because I didn't see the years of you and James Worthy and Sam Perkins and Matt Doherty and Brad Doherty. And that I didn't see those years. I didn't see it. I missed it.
What were you doing in Columbus? Do you have TV or what?
I was in Cleveland, actually. I grew up in Cleveland. I didn't have cable. And again, when I fell in love with basketball. My mom said, well, then watch it on TV. That was my coaching. My coach turned out to be this little guy on the sideline named Dean Smith, because I watched it on CBS. And the player that I watched was J.R. Reed. It was after I missed the shot by Michael Jordan. Now, I did see the shot in Cleveland of Michael Jordan, and we won't talk about that one because that was devastating because I'm a Cavs fan. Right. So anyway, So anyway, that's way, and people that have listened to this podcast know the history, but all kidding aside, it is just such a huge honor for me to have anyone in the Carolina family, and someone especially that I respect as much as you. It's just it's a huge honor for me.
Nice comeback. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, that was good. Yeah,
no, it's truth. It's honest truth. No one's been more excited. You can ask. I'll go get my girls. I'll bring them down, and they can explain how excited I was.
No problem. I trust you.
All right. Before we go into a few rapid fire questions, let's talk about the book, because we've covered it a lot, but let's just talk specifically about the book. What's the book all about? How do I get it? Why would I get it? Who's it for? All that kind of stuff. Let's talk about it.
I think it's called From Rebound from Pain to Passion, Leadership Lessons Learned. You can get it on Amazon. You could pre-order it. It comes out the first week of March, or you can get the e-version this week. And then I'll do an audio book, and I'll do it in my voice, which I've got to get on that here in the next few weeks. It basically touches on growing up on Long Island, my love affair with basketball, the people that impacted me, why I was the way I was, and then up through my time as a player at North Carolina, and then as a coach at Notre Dame, and then North Carolina, and the lessons I learned, my leadership journey, talks a lot about that. And at the end, I try to put the leadership lessons in an organized fashion. So if you were to have that book on your shelf and you were taking over a new position as a leader, that you could pull it off your shelf and say, I need to talk about managing up. I need to talk about hiring. I need to talk about listening. I need to talk about whatever it may be, core values. And it's, to me, everybody in their lifetime will probably be in a leadership role.
Right. At some point, at some level, 100%.
I mean, you may not be at work, but you're going to be at home if you're a dad.
Right. Right.
You may not be at work, but maybe you are on your block. You know, you may not be at work, but you may be at church. You know, you may not be at work, but you may be coaching your kids' youth basketball team.
Yep.
So, and the exciting thing is, to me, Aaron, is when I lost my job and I went on my leadership journey, I met with Carol Weber, and met with Fran Johnson and took a class, was learning about emotional intelligence in 2003. And in the book, it said, leadership is a learned behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I was of the school that you were born a leader. You're either a leader or you're not. And so when I got let go at North Carolina, I was depressed. I was down. I was thinking, well, maybe I'm not a good leader. Mm-hmm. And then when I read that, that excited me that anybody can become a better leader.
Right. Yep. I was just going to ask you in the rapid fire if leaders are born or if they are created. And I think you just answered it. And I agree with you. I maybe you're born with, because I think there's people that are extroverts and there's people that are introverts. And you can lead quietly, like a quiet strength, like our friend Tony Dungy, like he's my friend, but he may be your friend. I don't know. But a quiet strength, or like my son is a quiet strength leader. He's very quiet. He doesn't say two words, but his calm, cool, collected demeanor has been incredible in basketball. He's a pitcher, which it's the perfect personality as a pitcher, is even when the bases are loaded and he's got the four-hitter up, right, he's still, you wouldn't know, he's cool as a cucumber. You know what I mean? So he was born for that. So there is a born leadership, but I do believe leadership is a constant. You can't just, you weren't born into it and you're just a great leader. You have to constantly study. It sounds like you've taken a journey through heartache, through wins, through losses. It doesn't matter. You've taken a journey where you've constantly evolved, and you've mentioned several people that have helped you along that journey, whether directly or indirectly. You're constantly learning.
Yeah, I think you're born with some leadership skills, some leadership qualities, but there are certainly good leaders that aren't extroverts. There are certainly good leaders that aren't, commanding of a room. They come in all different shapes and sizes. And I think that we look at some people that, oh, he's the leader. But if you don't have, I talk about the 6 no's of leadership. And I use the acronym STEVIT, which I invented the word.
Love it.
STEVIT. You got to know yourself. You got to know your team. You got to know your environment. You got to know your vision. You got to know your industry, and you got to mind for the truth. And I think those 6 things are critical. So somebody can look like a good leader, but not be a great leader. And then there's the other person, maybe a Tony Dungy, maybe a Tony Bennett, UVA,
100%.
Reserved, kind of quiet, not going to be the life of the party,
right?
Not going to be up in front of everybody, not going to command the spotlight, but boy, oh boy, are they effective.
Sure. And there's a guy, Coach, that, right, I mean, perfect example of a guy that went through absolute heartbreak, right? I mean, and yet kept his team on track and came back the next year and won the whole freaking thing. Good for, like, right? He earned it. And he kept that team together. I've seen some things on TV with him. He is a phenomenal individual leader, quiet, graceful, you name it. I'm a massive Tony Bennett fan. He is really, really special. He really is. And it takes a guy like him.
Yep.
God placed him in that team for a reason. And it's the most heartbreaking loss to the biggest stage and the biggest win. What a great story he is as well. Just amazing. So I can't wait to read your book. I really can't. I'm probably going to go download it today so I can get it today on Amazon.
You'll be able to get it today, this week. I said this week. So I know you can get it on Kindle this week. I'm not sure if today or not, but go to Amazon, Rebound from Pain to Passion.
Pain to Passion. And then before we move on to rapid fire, because I have a few more minutes with you, I want to make sure I get through it. What else? Are you available for speaking engagements, church? I know I have some pastors that listen. I think you would be amazing. Are you available for those opportunities as well? And how do they get in touch with you?
Yes, just go to the rebound book.com website or coachmattdoherty.com website. Yes.
Two best links. And all those, anybody listening, will be in this post as well, so they can just click and find you. But anything else you want to share before we go through some rapid fire?
No, just learn and grow, man. Just try to get better each day.
Yeah. And you're a great follow on Twitter. Just don't bring up J.R. Reed.
Yeah. No, you can bring J.R. Reed up. I love J.R. Reed.
I love J.R. Reed.
I mean, but just don't say like it'll be your highest honor to have him on your podcast after getting me on the podcast and putting us both, on the same Twitter exchange like that. You got to be smarter than that, AA Ron.
That's right. I really do. It was Grace, Coach. Grace.
Yeah, I'll give you Grace tomorrow. Right now, I want to. You go from grill to Grace. All right. Don't push you can't push the process. I got to grill you a little bit.
Well, I loved it. I love the interaction. I love J.R. Reed, but I absolutely love that you're on this podcast. It's such a huge honor for me. And I hope you really know that. I'm an empath, man. I felt that. I felt all of it, and I feel it.
I just can't wait to watch when you finally get JR on, and I watch that podcast and how giddy you get talking to him. I might drive to Columbus and have a sit down with you.
I know a place you can stay. I'll make you a meal. You're always welcome. And I had Carrie Job on, and my assistant constantly reminds me. So I'll tell her, hey, I have Coach Matt Doherty coming on, and she'll say, well, don't be a fanboy like you were with Carrie Job. So I get to live up to that one all the time. But anyway, all right, rapid fire. You ready?
Yeah.
Favorite UNC memory, player or coach?
Ooh, man, it's hard. Two come right to mind: winning the national championship in '82, and then beating Duke at Duke as a coach my first time there.
Great answers. Favorite Michael Jordan memory?
Beating him in pool at UVA, and he was so upset. He looked at me, looked at the pool table, looked at me, threw the pool cue on the table, and said, "This table's not even regulation."
Classic Michael, right?
Yeah.
That's great. Are you in the, I imagine there's some clip, you're probably in The Last Dance. Isn't there some clip in that you made a scene in The Last Dance?
I make a scene everywhere I go. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yes, I am in there. If you put it on slow motion, you can kind of catch me.
Guarantee it. Favorite Dean Smith memory?
Ooh. There's many, man.
I bet.
There's many. One wasn't like, it was probably one of the funniest. My sophomore year, starting, James Worthy, Jimmy Black, Sam Perkins, Michael Jordan. And I was a McDonald's All-American. I was, I was a good player, not a great player, but a good player. And I take a 15, 18 footer in practice. We didn't have the 3-point line, didn't have a shot clock. And Coach Smith blows the whistle and says, he always whined. He never cursed, but he'd always whine. And he'd say, and he call you by your first name, full first name. He said, who on Matthew's team thought that was a good shot? Raise your hand. And I'm like, I just took an open shot. Like, I don't take a lot of shots. Like I'm standing next to Worthy, and his nickname was Stick. And I'm like, Stick, come on, man, raise your hand. And none of them raised their hands. Yeah. But that was Coach Smith, his way to, manipulate, motivate, let you know what he wanted for the team.
Why wasn't it a good shot if you were wide open?
He'd probably say you're open for a reason.
I think I've heard Roy say that too. If you're wide open, there's probably a reason for it. I think I've used that with sixth graders too.
So you have to, then as a player, you've got to, if you have that shot again and you take it, you better make it.
Right. If you had it to do over again, is there any other coach you would have played for?
No.
No.
No, not at all.
Incredible. Again, he taught me, and I was watching on CBS on Saturdays when you guys, actually after you were playing. So, awesome. Well, I'm sure I can come up with a million other questions. What did you think Michael would be? Did you think Michael would have shoes and a logo on Nike way back in the day when you were playing with him?
No, of course not. I think that would have been so disrespectful to Dr. J and Larry Bird and Magic Johnson.
Yes.
To say that Michael was going to be better than them.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in Coach Smith's office to talk with him after my senior year, just kind of about future plans and playing basketball and picking an agent. And Michael was in there. And so Michael comes out and, even today, like back then, the question was, what kind of shoe are you going to wear? Because we wore Converse at North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
He liked Adidas. He wore them in practice, and Adidas a rep was at like every practice. And then, Nike was going to make their push. So I'm sitting down, Michael's standing up, and he said, I'm going to wear Nike. They're going to make me a shoe. And you know how Michael talks and kind of does this. And they're going to make a shoe and call it the Air Jordan. And he turns around and walks out of the office. And I see him walking down the hall. And I'm saying to myself, that cocky son of a gun. And a year later, I get cut by the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Sorry.
And I'm working in New York City, and I'm running down Broadway trying to stay in shape, thinking maybe I'll go play in Europe. And a bus pulls up, and on the side of the bus is Michael Jordan doing his Air Jordan.
Jumpman logo. Right. Who knew? Yeah.
Who knew?
Incredible. And maybe someday Mike will come on the podcast. I'm not going to hold a lot of hope for that one. That's probably a big ask too, but this was a huge ask. And at the end of the day, I am so honored that you would come on and spend so much time. I've loved our even in the last few weeks, interaction on Twitter. I can't wait to read the book, and I hope others will bring you in, because I think your story is a powerful one. Just in the few minutes that we've had, I am just so honored, and this has been so life-giving for me. And I wish you nothing but success. And I hope we can continue to stay in touch on Twitter. I do, if you drop me after today, I'll keep reading.
Blocked. You're blocked.
Well, I'd like to still read, so don't block me completely, because I would like to read. No, this has been awesome, Coach. I am so honored, and I wish you nothing but the best. And again, 2005 were your players. So I'll just leave it at that. And we'll put a pin in it.
Hey, Coach Williams had a coach.
He did, and he did a fantastic job. And I'm a huge fan of Roy. But at the end of the day, that's what my belief has always been, and it will always be. I'm just so I'm so proud is not the word. I think proud is the word, which seems weird coming from little old me in Columbus, Ohio, to a guy that has played with all the things, all the places and things that we've talked about. But, it is, I've been through some of those stumbles. I've been through some of that hurt, not at a national level, not with a spotlight, but it's hard to rebound. And there's very few that do. Some people spiral completely out of control. And I can't wait to read the book, because I do want to hear how you've really had to dig in, find that in yourself, and you've made it, career now out of helping others being, that are in that position now. And I can't wait to read it, Coach. I really can't.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate you.
God bless. Thank you so much. And let's keep in touch. And
All
if
right.
you ever come to Columbus, you got a place to stay. I won't let you there, Reed.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.